Ambassador Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes as he entered the grand chamber of the Galactic Council. The massive hall stretched before him, its crystalline walls reflecting the light from 100 different star systems. Representatives from 47 species sat in their designated sections, their various forms creating a tapestry of galactic diversity. The Vrex delegation occupied the highest tier, their scaled bodies gleaming under the artificial suns that provided light for the chamber. Today's session would address the newest petition for membership. The humans of Earth had finally developed faster-than-light travel and sought to join the galactic community. Zethkar had reviewed their file extensively. A young species, barely 10,000 years of recorded history, dwelling on a single world in a remote spiral arm. Their technology was primitive by galactic standards. Their military consisted of crude kinetic weapons and chemical explosives, and their society remained fragmented into competing nation-states. The Galactic Council had encountered thousands of such species over the millennia. Most followed predictable patterns. They would join as junior members, gradually adopt galactic standards, and eventually find their place in the vast hierarchy that governed interstellar civilization. The humans would likely become another client race of one of the major powers, perhaps the Vrex or the Aldorian Republic. Council Speaker Vorthani called the session to order with a resonant tone that translated across all present languages. We gather today to consider the application of the species known as humans from the world designated Earth 3. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vrex hegemony will present the initial assessment. Zethkar rose from his seat, his forearms spreading in a gesture of formal address. Honored representatives, the Vrex hegemony has completed its evaluation of the human species. They show typical characteristics of a recently spacefaring race. Limited technological development, fractured political systems, and minimal military capabilities. However, they demonstrate sufficient intelligence and social organization to warrant conditional membership. A ripple of agreement passed through the chamber. This was standard procedure for primitive species. They would be granted limited trading rights, assigned a Vrex overseer, and gradually integrated into galactic society. The humans would provide raw materials and labor in exchange for advanced technology and protection. The hegemony proposes standard integration protocols. Zethkar continued. The humans will be classified as a protected development species under Vrex guidance. This will ensure their peaceful transition into galactic civilization while preventing any unfortunate incidents that might arise from their current aggressive tendencies. Representative Cole, thus, of the Aldorian Republic, activated his speaking platform. The Republic has also reviewed the human assessment. We concur with the Vrex evaluation, though we note some concerning elements in their historical records. This species shows unusual persistence in warfare and an alarming tendency toward total conflict resolution. Zitkers Mendebes klikt in amusement. Honored Cole thus raises valid points, but these are common traits among developing species. Their primitive nature limits the scope of any potential aggression. With proper guidance, these tendencies can be redirected toward productive purposes. The debate continued for several standard hours. Representatives discussed resource allocation, territorial assignments, and integration timelines. The humans would be permitted to colonize 3 systems within their local cluster, all under Vrex supervision. Their military would be restricted to system defense only, and all interstellar vessels would require galactic approval. Elder Mordain of the ancient Zelix Confederation rarely spoke during council sessions. When he activated his platform, the entire chamber fell silent. The Zelix were among the oldest species in the galaxy, their civilization spanning over 1 million years. Their counsel was rarely offered, but always heeded. I have observed the rise and fall of countless species. Mordain's voice carried the weight of eons. Most follow predictable patterns, as our colleagues have noted, but occasionally, a species emerges that defies all expectations. I recommend extreme caution regarding these humans. Zethkar's primary eyes focused on the ancient being. With respect, Elder Mordain, what specific concerns do you have? Our analysis indicates the humans pose no significant threat to galactic stability. Your analysis focuses on their current capabilities, Mordain replied. You measure their weapons, count their ships, assess their technology. But you fail to understand what drives them. I have studied their historical records more thoroughly than your surface evaluation suggests. The chamber stirred with interest. Elder Mordain rarely elaborated on his concerns without significant reason. These humans wage war differently than any species we have encountered, the Elder continued. When threatened, they do not simply fight to achieve objectives. They fight to eliminate threats entirely. Their concept of total war involves the complete destruction of an enemy's capacity to ever threaten them again. Representative Yelandra of the Mechanic Collective interjected, "Surely you exaggerate, Elder. Many species show aggression during their primitive phases." "Do they?" Mordain's ancient eyes seemed to pierce through the assembled delegates. "How many species have you encountered that deliberately targeted civilian populations as a military strategy? How many have developed weapons specifically designed to render entire worlds uninhabitable? How many have created doctrines that accept their own extinction as an acceptable cost for ensuring their enemy's defeat?" The chamber fell silent. Such tactics were unknown among civilized species. Warfare in the galaxy followed established conventions. Military targets were engaged, civilians were protected, and conflicts concluded when objectives were achieved or proved impossible. Furthermore, Mordain continued, their technology development follows concerning patterns. While we measure their current primitive status, we ignore their rate of advancement. In the past century alone, they progressed from chemical propulsion to fusion drives. Their weapons evolved from simple firearms to devices capable of destroying cities. Their computational abilities increased exponentially. Zitkar shifted uncomfortably. The Vrex prided themselves on thorough analysis, but they had focused on current capabilities rather than developmental trends. Most troubling, the Elder said, is their response to existential threats. When faced with potential extinction, they do not seek diplomatic solutions or accept subjugation. They adapt, innovate, and strike back with overwhelming force. Their historical records contain numerous examples of smaller forces defeating vastly superior opponents through tactics that other species would consider impossible or insane. The silence in the chamber grew heavy. Several representatives began accessing their own databases, reviewing human historical records with new perspective. "I propose an alternative approach," Mordain concluded. "Rather than integration under a protective sponsor, I suggest we offer the humans full membership with autonomous rights. Allow them to develop freely within designated space, but establish clear boundaries and mutual respect protocols." The chamber erupted in discussion. Full membership for a primitive species was unprecedented. Such status was reserved for civilizations that had proven themselves over millennia. Zitkar stund to respond. "Elder Mordain, while your concerns merit consideration, granting full membership to such a primitive species sets a dangerous precedent. They lack the wisdom to handle advanced technologies responsibly. Their aggressive tendencies require careful management to prevent them from becoming a threat to themselves or others. And if they reject our management?" Mordain asked quietly. "Then they will be contained," Zethkar replied with confidence. "The Vrex hegemony possesses sufficient force to ensure compliance from any single world species. Their primitive weapons cannot threaten our battle fleets." Elder Mordain closed his ancient eyes and seemed to withdraw into himself. When he spoke again, his voice carried a note of finality. "Then, I formally register my opposition to the proposed integration protocols. I predict this course of action will result in conflict that the Galactic Council is unprepared to handle." The vote proceeded as expected. The Council approved Vrex supervision of human integration by a substantial majority. Only the Zelix Confederation and 2 minor species opposed the measure. The humans would be contacted and informed of their new status as a protected development species under Galactic Council authority. As the session concluded and representatives began filing out of the chamber, Elder Mordain remained in his seat. His aide approached cautiously. "Elder, shall I prepare our withdrawal from this sector?" "Yes," Mordain replied softly. "Move our core systems beyond the conflict zone and begin preliminary preparations for war refugees." "Va refugees, Elda. The Galactic Council has just declared war on humanity," Mordain explained. "They simply do not realize it yet. The humans will view this protection as conquest, and they will respond accordingly. When that happens, the galaxy will learn why some species should never be caged." 3 days later, the Vrex battleship Dominant Glory arrived in Earth's solar system. Admiral Vextar commanded the most powerful vessel in the Hegemony fleet, equipped with enough firepower to sterilize entire worlds. The ship's weapons could penetrate any known defensive system, and its shields could withstand sustained bombardment from primitive kinetic weapons. The Admiral's mission was simple: establish orbital control around Earth, disarm the human military, and begin the integration process. Intelligence reports indicated that Earth possessed no weapons capable of threatening his vessel. Their most advanced spacecraft were crude chemical rockets, barely capable of reaching their own moon. "Admiral," his sensor operator reported, "we are detecting multiple artificial satellites in orbit around the planet. Some appear to be communication relays. Others show signs of scientific equipment. Any weapons signatures?" Admiral Vextar asked. "Negative, sir. All objects appear to be civilian in nature." "Excellent. Begin broadcasting the standard integration announcement on all human communication frequencies." The message that reached every human radio, television, and internet connection was clear and simple. Earth had been granted membership in the Galactic Council under Vrex protection. All military forces were to stand down immediately. Government representatives would report to designated sites for briefing on new administrative procedures. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force. On Earth, world leaders gathered in emergency sessions. The message had been accompanied by detailed scans of major military installations, demonstrating that the alien vessel possessed complete knowledge of human defensive capabilities. The ship itself was massive, easily visible to the naked eye as it hung motionless above the planet. President Chun of the Pacific Alliance spoke first during the hastily arranged global conference. "We're dealing with technology centuries beyond our capabilities. Their ship could destroy any city on Earth without us being able to retaliate effectively." Prime Minister Singh of the European Federation nodded grimly. "Our combined nuclear arsenals might damage their vessel, but the cost in human lives would be catastrophic. They're positioned directly over major population centers." "So we surrender?" asked Premier Volkov of the Northern Territories. "Accept this protection and hope they treat us well." General Martinez of the America's Defense Command pulled up tactical assessments on the main display. "Surrender may be our only practical option, but I recommend we comply slowly, gather intelligence, and look for weaknesses. This may not be over." The decision was reached within hours. Earth would comply with Galactic Council directives while secretly maintaining its military research programs. Human forces would appear to disarm while actually dispersing to hidden facilities. If an opportunity arose to resist, humanity would be ready. Admiral Vextar received confirmation of human compliance with satisfaction. The integration was proceeding smoothly, exactly as the Galactic Council had predicted. Within a few standard years, the humans would be fully incorporated into the galactic economy as productive citizens under Vrex guidance. He had no way of knowing that in hidden facilities around the world, human scientists were already analyzing every aspect of his ship's technology, looking for weaknesses that could be exploited. The humans were complying with the letter of the surrender terms while violating their spirit completely. The war that Elder Mordain had predicted was about to begin. 6 months had passed since the Vrex established their protectorate over Earth, and Admiral Vextar was growing increasingly frustrated with human compliance methods. While the humans had technically met all requirements for disarmament, their interpretation of those requirements stretched galactic protocols to their limits. Admiral, his intelligence officer reported during the morning briefing, we've detected another anomaly in human compliance patterns. They've declared 17 more manufacturing facilities as historical preservation sites and removed them from our inspection lists. Vextar's mandibles clicked in irritation. How many does that make total? 347 manufacturing sites now under historical protection, sir. Additionally, they've reclassified 62 military bases as educational institutions and 43 weapons research facilities as agricultural development centers. The Admiral studied the reports with growing suspicion. The humans were technically following integration protocols while maintaining vast amounts of industrial and research capacity outside Vrex oversight. Their compliance was absolutely correct by legal standards, but clearly designed to preserve as much capability as possible. What about their space program? Have they ceased all military space activities? Officially, yes, sir. However, they've dramatically expanded their civilian space program. They've launched over 200 scientific research satellites in the past 6 months. Most appear to be exactly what they claim, but the volume is unusual for a species just beginning space exploration. Vextar activated his command display and examined the orbital traffic patterns around Earth. The humans had indeed launched an impressive array of scientific instruments, communication relays, and research platforms. Everything appeared legitimate, but the scale suggested capabilities far beyond what the initial assessment had indicated. Sir, his sensor operator interrupted. We're receiving a priority communication from Hegemony Command. The holographic image of Supreme Admiral Korvax materialized above the command platform. The Supreme Admiral's scarred features bore the weight of 1,000 campaigns across the galaxy. Admiral Vextar, I'm transmitting new intelligence regarding your sector. Our analysts have been reviewing human historical data more thoroughly, and we've discovered concerning patterns that may affect your mission. What kind of patterns, Supreme Admiral? The humans appear to have a unique approach to asymmetric warfare. When facing technologically superior opponents, they focus on disrupting supply lines, targeting command structures, and exploiting psychological weaknesses. More troubling, they show remarkable innovation under pressure. Vextar considered this information. Supreme Admiral, the humans have shown complete compliance with integration protocols. Their primitive technology poses no threat to our vessel or operations. Perhaps, but be aware that their compliance may be tactical rather than genuine submission. We're dispatching additional support vessels to your sector. The battle cruiser Eternal Dominance will arrive within 2 standard weeks. The transmission ended, leaving Vextar to contemplate the implications. Supreme Admiral Korvax was not prone to unnecessary caution. If he was sending reinforcements, the situation might be more complex than initially assessed. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chun worked 18-hour days in the hidden research facility beneath the former Atacama Desert Observatory. The site had been reclassified as an archaeological preservation zone 6 months earlier, removing it from Vrex inspection requirements while providing perfect cover for humanity's most critical research project. Sarah, you need to see this. Her colleague Dr. James Wright called from across the laboratory. We've finally made sense of their shield harmonics. Sarah rushed to examine the data displayed on Wright's workstation. For months, teams of human scientists have been analyzing every aspect of Vrex technology they could observe. The alien ship remained in orbit, constantly broadcasting scanner beams and communication signals that provided valuable intelligence about their capabilities. Their shields operate on a rotating frequency pattern, Wright explained, highlighting specific wavelengths on his display. It's incredibly sophisticated, but it follows mathematical principles that we can predict. The rotation cycle repeats every 47 minutes and 33 seconds. Can we exploit it? Sarah asked. Maybe. There's a 17-second window during each cycle where the shield frequency drops to almost zero while transitioning between patterns. If we could time an attack precisely, we might be able to penetrate their defenses. Sarah felt her pulse quicken. This was the breakthrough they'd been hoping for. What kind of attack? Our conventional weapons won't damage their hull, even without shields. Wright smiled grimly. That's where Project Prometheus comes in. He led her to a secured section of a laboratory where teams had been working on humanity's most ambitious weapons project. Drawing on theoretical physics research that had been purely academic before the Vrek's arrival, human scientists had developed a weapon that could disrupt matter at the quantum level. We call it a quantum destabilizer, Wright explained, indicating the device that looked deceptively simple. It doesn't destroy targets conventionally. Instead, it causes the quantum bonds holding matter together to become unstable. The effect spreads through any connected structure. How much damage could it cause? If we can deliver it to their ship during the shield vulnerability window, it should cause cascade failures throughout their hull. The entire vessel would literally fall apart at the molecular level. Sarah stared at the weapon in amazement and horror. Human scientists had developed technology that could destroy the most advanced ship in a Vrek's fleet, all while appearing to comply with disarmament requirements. There's one problem, Wright continued. We need to deliver the weapon directly to their hull. Our primitive rockets can't reach their altitude, and even if they could, the Vrek's would detect and destroy any conventional missile. What do you propose? Wright activated another display, showing orbital trajectories around Earth. We use their own complacency against them. For 6 months, we've been launching scientific satellites that they've learned to ignore. Tomorrow, we launch one more. But this satellite will contain the quantum destabilizer and a small maneuvering system. Sarah studied the plan with growing excitement. The satellite drifts close to their ship during routine scientific operations, then activates during the shield vulnerability window. Exactly. They'll never see it coming. Meanwhile, in the Vrek's command center aboard Dominant Glory, Admiral Vextar was reviewing the latest compliance reports when his communications officer received an urgent signal. Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity in several human population centers. Large groups of civilians are moving away from major cities and heading toward remote areas. Vextar Frulvnid. Mass population movements could indicate preparation for armed resistance. What's causing the migration? The humans claim they're conducting emergency preparedness exercises in response to our presence. They say they want their population dispersed in case of accidental damage to urban areas. The explanation sounded reasonable, but Vextar's instincts suggested otherwise. Maintain full sensor sweeps of all population centers. If the humans are planning resistance, we need advance warning. What the Admiral didn't realize was that the human evacuation was indeed preparation for combat, but not in the way he expected. Human military planners had recognized that their planned attack on the Vrek ship would likely result in massive retaliation against Earth cities. By dispersing the population to prepared shelters in remote areas, they hoped to minimize casualties when the war began in earnest. The attack plan had been coordinated among Earth's major powers in absolute secrecy. Each nation contributed resources and expertise while maintaining the appearance of normal civilian activities. The quantum destabilizer represented the combined scientific knowledge of the entire human species focused on a single objective: freeing Earth from alien occupation. Launch day arrived with no unusual activity that Vrek sensors could detect. The humans announced their latest scientific satellite launch using the same communication protocols they'd followed for months. The rocket lifted off from the Pacific Alliance Base Center, carrying what appeared to be another routine research platform. Admiral Vextar barely noticed the launch notification. Human satellite deployments had become so common that they warranted only routine monitoring. His sensors confirmed that the satellite contained no explosive materials or obvious weapon systems. It appeared to be exactly what the humans claimed, another research platform. The satellite achieved orbit and began deploying its scientific instruments exactly as planned. For 3 days, it conducted routine atmospheric and electromagnetic measurements while slowly maneuvering closer to the Vrex vessel's position. On the fourth day, Dr. Sarah Chun stood in the hidden command center monitoring the final approach. The satellite was now within 200 meters of Dominant Glory's hull, close enough to deliver the quantum destabilizer during the next shield vulnerability window. 15 minutes to next shield rotation, Red announced. All systems showing green. The weapon is armed and ready. Sarah felt the weight of humanity's future pressing down on her. If this attack failed, the Vrex would almost certainly retaliate with overwhelming force. But if humans didn't strike now, they might never get another opportunity. 10 minutes to shield vulnerability. Around the world, human populations waited in their emergency shelters. Military forces remained hidden in underground bunkers, ready to emerge if the initial attack succeeded. Everyone understood that the next few minutes would determine whether humanity remained free or became permanent subjects of an alien empire. 5 minutes to window. Admiral Vextar was reviewing supply requisitions when his sensor operator detected anomalous readings from the human research satellite. "Sir, that scientific platform is showing unusual energy signatures. Power levels are increasing beyond normal research parameters." Vextar examined the sensor data with growing alarm. "How close is that satellite to our hull?" 200 meters, sir. It's been conducting atmospheric research for the past 3 days. Atmospheric research requires distance from orbital objects, Vextar realized with sudden clarity. That satellite has no legitimate scientific reason to be so close to our ship. 1 minute to shield rotation, Wright announced in the Human Command Center. "Admiral, should we destroy the satellite?" the weapons officer asked. Immediately, Vextar ordered, but the Vrex response came 17 seconds too late. As their weapons powered up to destroy the suspicious satellite, the human quantum destabilizer activated during the precise moment when Dominant Glory's shields were transitioning between frequency patterns. The weapon's effect was almost invisible at first. A small section of the Vrex hull simply stopped existing at the quantum level. But the destabilization effect spread rapidly through the ship's structure, causing molecular bonds to fail in an expanding cascade of destruction. Admiral Vextar had just enough time to realize what was happening before Dominant Glory began tearing itself apart from within. The most powerful warship in the Vrex fleet was reduced to expanding clouds of free atoms in less than 30 seconds. Around the world, human populations emerged from their shelters to see debris from the destroyed Vrex ship streaking across the sky like a meteor shower. Humanity had struck the first blow in a war that would reshape the entire galaxy. The destruction of Dominant Glory sent shockwaves through the Galactic Council that reached far beyond the immediate military implications. For the first time in recorded galactic history, a primitive single-world species had completely destroyed a major power's flagship using unknown weapons technology. Supreme Admiral Korvax stood before the emergency session of the Vrex High Command, his scarred features grim with the weight of unprecedented defeat. The humans have demonstrated capabilities that our intelligence assessments completely failed to predict. They developed and deployed weapons technology that we have never encountered before. Fleet Admiral Thexval activated his tactical display. "Supreme Admiral, preliminary analysis of the debris field suggests the humans used some form of quantum destabilization weapon. Our materials experts believe this technology could threaten any vessel in our fleet." "How is that possible?" demanded High Commander Zordak. 6 months ago, these primitives barely had chemical rockets. Now, they possess weapons that can destroy our most advanced ships. Korvax studied the tactical reports with growing unease. Intelligence suggests the humans have been concealing their true technological capabilities for decades. Their space program, scientific research, and industrial capacity were all significantly underestimated in our initial assessments. The High Command Chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. The Vrex hegemony had based their integration strategy on the assumption that humans posed no military threat. That assumption had cost them their most powerful warship and left their expansion plans in chaos. What's our current military position in the human sector? Korvax asked. The battlecruiser Eternal Dominance is still en route, arriving in 4 standard days, Admiral Thexval replied. Additionally, we can redirect the 3rd battle fleet from the Aldorian border. That would give us 12 heavy cruisers and 43 destroyer-class vessels. And the humans? Unknown, Supreme Admiral. They appear to have no space-based military assets, but their ground-based capabilities are clearly far beyond our estimates. We must assume they can produce additional quantum weapons. Korvax made his decision. Redirect the 3rd battle fleet immediately. We will establish orbital control with overwhelming force, then sterilize the human homeworld. This rebellion ends now. On Earth, Dr. Sarah Chan worked frantically to analyze the intelligence data streaming in from hidden monitoring stations around the globe. The success of their initial attack had bought humanity time, but Vrex reinforcements were already moving toward Earth. Sarah, you need to see this, Dr. Wright called urgently. Our deep space monitoring array is detecting multiple faster-than-light signatures heading our way. The alien fleet is massive. Sarah examined the sensor readings with growing alarm. 15 ships, including several that are much larger than the one we destroyed. They'll be here within days. Can we build more quantum destabilizers? Not fast enough. The quantum resonance chambers require precision manufacturing that takes weeks to complete. We might be able to produce 2 more weapons before the fleet arrives. Wright ran calculations on his workstation. 2 weapons against 15 ships. Not good odds. Sarah turned to address the assembled scientists and military leaders who had gathered in the command center. We need to change tactics. The Vrex will expect us to use the same quantum weapons, so they'll be prepared for that threat. General Martinez stepped forward. What do you propose? We use their expectations against them. Intelligence suggests the Vrex fleet will position themselves far from Earth to avoid quantum weapon attacks. That gives us an opportunity to implement Project Exodus. Project Exodus had been humanity's contingency plan from the beginning. If Earth became untenable, specially prepared ships would carry human populations and industrial capacity to hidden colonies in nearby star systems. But Sarah was proposing something far more aggressive. We convert the colony ships into weapons platforms, she explained. Each vessel carries industrial equipment, scientific instruments, and, most importantly, fusion reactors powerful enough to provide energy for entire settlements. Wright caught on immediately. You want to turn the fusion reactors into bombs. Not exactly bombs. Directed fusion charges that can accelerate projectiles to significant fractions of light speed. The Vrex shields are designed to stop energy weapons and conventional missiles. They won't be prepared for kinetic projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. General Martinez studied the proposal with professional interest. How many ships are we talking about? 43 colony vessels, each capable of launching multiple kinetic strikes before the Vrex can respond. And, unlike our quantum weapons, these projectiles can't be stopped once they're launched. The plan was ambitious beyond anything humans had attempted before. The colony ships had been designed for long-term space travel, not combat operations. Converting them to weapons platforms would require modifications that pushed human engineering to its absolute limits. How long do we have? Sarah asked. The Vrex fleet will arrive in 72 hours, Wright replied. After that, they'll probably try to establish orbital control before beginning bombardment operations. Then, we launch everything in 60 hours. The colony ships head for predetermined positions throughout the solar system while we evacuate as many people as possible to the underground shelters. Meanwhile, Supreme Admiral Korvax arrived in the human system aboard the flagship Infinite Conquest, the most powerful vessel in the Vrex fleet. His tactical officers had spent the journey developing strategies specifically designed to counter human quantum weapons. Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity throughout the human system, his sensor operator reported. Multiple large vessels are departing the 3rd planet and moving toward various orbital positions. Korvax examined the sensor readings carefully. Configuration and capabilities? They appear to be civilian vessels, possibly evacuation ships. No obvious weapon signatures, but their drives are more powerful than our estimate suggested. Maintain maximum distance from all human vessels until we can determine their true nature, Korvax ordered. These humans have already demonstrated that their apparent primitiveness is deceptive. The Vrex fleet established positions well outside the orbit of Mars, far enough from Earth to avoid surprise quantum attacks, while close enough to project overwhelming firepower toward the human homeworld. From this position, they could destroy any Earth-based threats while remaining relatively safe. Open communication channels to the human leadership, Korvax commanded. Inform them that they have 1 standard hour to surrender unconditionally. After that, we begin planetary bombardment. The message reached Earth's leadership in their deep underground command bunkers. President Chun reviewed the Vrex ultimatum with her military advisors, knowing that humanity's response would determine the fate of their species. Status of Project Exodus? She asked. General Martinez consulted his tactical displays. All 43 colony ships are in position throughout the solar system. Fusion charges are armed and ready. We can launch coordinated kinetic strikes against the entire Vrex fleet simultaneously. Success probability? Unknown. We're using untested weapons against unknown defenses. But if we don't act now, they'll destroy Earth anyway. President Chun made the decision that would echo through galactic history. Implement Project Exodus. Launch all kinetic strikes immediately. Throughout the solar system, human colony ships that had been disguised as evacuation vessels suddenly revealed their true nature. Massive fusion charges accelerated dense metal projectiles to 20% of light speed, launching them toward every ship in the Vrex fleet. Supreme Admiral Korvax had less than 40 minutes to realize what was happening before the first kinetic projectile struck Infinite Conquest. The relativistic impact released energy equivalent to several antimatter weapons, punching through Vrex shields as if they didn't exist. The flagship's destruction created a brilliant flash visible from Earth as stored energy from the ship's reactor added to the kinetic impact. Around the solar system, similar flashes marked the destruction of the other Vrex vessels as humanity's desperate gambit succeeded beyond all expectations. In less than an hour, the entire Vrex third battle fleet had been eliminated by weapons that barely qualified as technology by galactic standards. Human engineers had simply accelerated chunks of metal very fast and thrown them very accurately. The news of the fleet's destruction reached the Galactic Council within days, transmitted by automated beacons that survived the battle. The scale of the defeat was unprecedented in galactic military history. A primitive single-world species had destroyed the most powerful fleet in Vrex space using improvised weapons. Elder Mordain of the Zelix Confederation spoke to an emergency session of the Council with the weight of fulfilled prophecy. I warned you 6 months ago that these humans wage war differently than any species we have encountered. You chose to ignore that warning. Now you have learned what happens when you threaten a species that views extinction as preferable to subjugation. Ambassador Zethkar, one of the few Vrex representatives to survive the political upheaval following the fleet's destruction, stood to address the Council. The hegemony formally requests immediate military support from all Council members. The human threat must be contained before they develop additional weapons technologies. No, Elder Mordain replied simply. The chamber erupted in shocked discussion. The Zelix rarely involve themselves in military conflicts, but their opposition to intervention carried enormous weight. The humans offered no aggression until you attempted to subjugate them, Mordain continued. They responded to conquest with resistance, exactly as their historical records predicted they would. You created this conflict through arrogance and ignorance. Representative Cole, thus, of the Aldorian Republic, activated his platform. Elder Mordain, regardless of who initiated this conflict, the humans now possess weapons that threaten galactic stability. Their kinetic bombardment techniques could be used against any world in Council space. Indeed, Mordain agreed, which is precisely why the Council must approach them with respect rather than force. These humans have demonstrated that they can defend themselves against overwhelming odds. They have also shown that they prefer negotiation to conquest when treated as equals. The debate continued for days, but the outcome was inevitable. The destruction of two major Vrex fleets had demonstrated that humanity could not be conquered by conventional means. Several council members secretly began preparing diplomatic overtures to the human government, hoping to establish peaceful relations before other powers attempted military solutions. 6 months later, Ambassador Sarah Chun stepped into the same Grand Chamber where the Galactic Council had first decided humanity's fate. But this time, she entered as Earth's representative to negotiate from a position of strength. Ilda Mordain will come here personally. Ambassador Chun, the Council is prepared to offer humanity full membership with complete autonomy. No species will be permitted to interfere in human space, and Earth's territorial claims throughout your local cluster will be recognized. Sarah considered the offer carefully. What guarantees do we have that the Council won't change its mind again when it's convenient? The same guarantee you provided to the Vrex fleets. Mordain replied with something that might have been amusement. The knowledge that attempting to conquer humanity results in the complete destruction of the attacking force. The formal treaty was signed 3 days later, establishing humanity as the 48th member of the Galactic Council with full autonomous rights. The document included a clause that would become famous throughout galactic space. Any attempt to subjugate or conquer humanity would be considered an act of war against the entire Council. But the real deterrent was not legal language. It was the growing legend of what happened to species that threatened humanity's freedom. The story spread through galactic civilization like wildfire, carried by traders, diplomats, and military officers to every world in Council space. The Galactic Council had learned why some species should never be caged, and why humanity's approach to warfare made them the most dangerous ally or enemy in the galaxy. When humans fought, they didn't seek victory. They sought the complete elimination of any threat to their freedom. And as Elder Mordain had predicted, once that lesson was learned, it was never forgotten.